What?
Nothing. Just a nice little expressive note there, totally accidentally, but perfectly in time. Hey everybody, it's the Jimmy Doan Show. We are live right here on Facebook because it's 4 o'clock, and that's what we do twice a week these days. 4 o'clock, Sundays and Wednesdays, right here. And join us if you can. You can comment. I'll try to check the comments partway through and see if anybody's chimed in. Today is the 22nd day of April. It's Earth Day.
Earth Day,
Woo!
yes.
So, also, I'll post a timestamp copy of this show up on YouTube, hopefully later tonight. So, then we'll see you. We'll see you then, right? So to speak. All right. And here we are.
And here we are. All right, a couple of announcements before we get started.
Okay.
One, this here is the headline on the Gainesville Sun this morning. And of course, what's happened is we have one death.
She's out of here.
Out of here. We had 160. No, the story, of course, this is the headline. This is
Right.
Mrs. O'Leary's cow tipped over something.
Right.
This is, so-and-so had pigs or, anyway, so they had one from COVID, whatever she died, 67 years old, no other information. Don't know where she was, if she had any pre-existing, nothing. But this is the headline.
Suspicious.
We are now in...
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, we can infer what that means, which is that she had pre-existing conditions and she was going to die anyway, like tomorrow or something.
Sure.
And but they don't want to tell us that because they don't want to give us too much hope.
No,
or anything.
but this is what substitutes for news here on the Gainesville Sun these days. Another thing is two things. Kim Il-un. There was a rumor this week.
Yeah.
That he was had a heart surgery or something,
I heard,
some kind of surgery.
Yeah.
Like I had maybe, you know, and he was dying or something.
Didn't do so well.
Now they've come out and repudiated all of that.
Fine. He's fine. Dead yet.
He's not dead, right? And apparently the some other localish sources. Now you would expect the northern Korea people to say this is just peachy. South Korea also that said nothing. We our sources do not tell us there's a problem with this guy.
Yeah, Seoul was like incoming.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing about it is, as they said, he's like 80 pounds overweight and he smokes. So don't be surprised
if he gets
if he has a problem, right? The other little minor problem with all this is apparently there's no succession.
Weird.
Well, they have said
surprised
that
he didn't kill every member of his family.
Well, he's apparently taken a couple of them out, but somebody said it was. I think that his sister might take over.
Yeah, her picture was on the news today.
Oh, was that right?
Yeah, and it was a new dictator or whatever. Like, who knows?
Who knows?
I mean, yeah, who knows? We're on nebulous land as far as that's concerned. I've been waiting for a while to see if maybe the senior management over there wouldn't take him out in some way, but you can never tell what's going on.
Oh, you think about it. The senior management had every opportunity to take Hitler out, and they never did. They even tried.
Well, and to some extent, maybe they want him there. Maybe you have a figurehead and you pull the strings from behind him or something. So then, if people take somebody out, they take out that guy, and you get on your boat and head to the Mediterranean or something.
I don't know. I don't see it that way. I can tell you, another one was Stalin. I mean, he would always. You lived in, no matter where you were on the hierarchy, almost all, I remember in the 50s and 60s during the Cold War, you would see, now Stalin died in 54, I guess, but even before that, you would see people would disappear from pictures. I mean, literally, they would rewrite the history.
Right,
so this...
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Okay, now the next thing I want to talk a little bit about, I had not expected. I was going to make a jump in on this because of last night. What happened is I listened to Michael Moore.
Okay.
And as you well know, on more than one occasion, we have accused Scott Adams of Dilbert fame to listen to our video cast.
Yes.
And because he comes out with something after we've come with it. Okay. Not so this time.
Oh, yeah?
I watched Michael Moore yesterday announced his new documentary.
Okay.
And I forget what it's called, Humans on Earth or something. You'd have to look at it. And he put it up for free, starting, I don't know, yesterday about 5 or 6 o'clock. Okay. Well, I went over and had to watch it. It's a documentary. He is an executive producer, but he's not the filmmaker or the narrator or anything like that.
Oh.
He's just merely the executive producer.
Okay.
But there are other, when you go through the credits, there's lots and lots of different credits. And apparently this particular documentary has been in the making for a while. It is a fossil fuel type documentary on fossil fuels.
Okay.
And Scott Adams had a lot to say about it, and he said basically what I said. I was going to talk about this today, but he beat me to it. So if you get a chance, you need to go to wherever you're, Periscope or whatever it is, and listen. It starts about halfway through his Periscope.
Oh,
Scott Adams.
Okay. Yeah.
It starts about halfway through when he dissects the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes to pretty much the same conclusions I did, with one major exception, and that is he disses the movie because they left out a lot of stuff, which of course documentary movies a lot of times do that. They zero in on something.
Well, yeah, usually Michael Moore's movies are just a series of anecdotes.
Well, this was not done by him.
Right. I'm just saying that usually it's just like, it's literally like 10 different one-person stories that in his mind illustrate the entire picture. He picks somebody at each vertice of the crisis or whatever. But it's not statistical, obviously, because it's one group or one person.
Well, there's some of that
here. Personal because
there is some of that here, but you can't deny a lot of it. So anyway, what this documentary is basically showing how there's no way on this planet that renewable resources will ever power a society.
Really? It's
no chance. Totally anti. And as I said, Michael Moore, as did Scott Adams.
Yeah.
He said, I can't believe it. And now the flaw, as he said in the documentary, was that he never mentioned nuclear as a possible solution. They talked about all the problems with the solar. Well, again, he didn't. The documentary left that off, and as Scott Adams came to basically the same conclusion that I did, and that is that he went right up to that point, where the next thing would have been
a sequel,
right? But you didn't go in, and one of the reasons is the backlash on the rest of the movie, the rest of the message would have been overpowering. That people would have said they would have ignored everything that he said about the failure of solar and wind for openers.
Why? Why don't those two things complement each other?
Well, that was his complaint. That was Scott Adams' complaint,
okay.
Not my complaint. My complaint was it was obvious on its face that nuclear had been left out, and nobody could watch that and say, "Wait a minute,
what about nuclear?"
Yeah, what about nuclear? I mean, it was so automatic. In anybody's.
Do you think he's planning a second movie?
I have no idea. Again, it's not Michael. Remember now, he's the executive director.
Well, I know, but
apparently he funded part of it, and he must have had.
That's all an executive producer does.
I know, but he might have had a veto power over parts of it. But if he did, it wasn't Michael Moore stuff.
Yeah.
This was a real slam. I mean, every kind of slam you can imagine.
Well, we've talked about this before. I mean, there's a great TED talk that talks about the kilowatt hours per square yard.
Right, we've talked about this before. Yeah, nuclear is 100 times better than
so much better. And it's so, look, nuclear just so gets a bad rap. Nobody's ever died except for the Chernobyl thing, which was an unmitigated disaster on several levels, doesn't have to repeat. The power that's been provided by nuclear has transformed the society. And yet, more people died today from coronavirus than ever died from nuclear.
Right.
And I just how they. I guess it makes sense. It's the unknown green glowing. For decades after nuclear energy, it was Spider-Man gets bit by a radioactive spider. It's magic.
One of the first ones. They had all of the. For the atom bomb test in the Pacific, that's when those giant crabs come out, and Godzilla. And every animal you can think of
was mutated, three-eyed fish.
And there was the ants,
Simpsons.
them,
right,
from the desert test. This. Who couldn't make a movie like that?
Well, right, okay, so all right, but here my question is, by now, hasn't Hollywood played out all of those fears to the extent that we're like, it's just nuclear. It's just some atomic interreaction there.
Well, when you think about it, also, it was in the mid-50s that they put a nuclear generator, whatever, in a submarine.
Right, yeah.
I mean, who was panicky about that?
Yeah.
You were living next door in a tube at 1,000 feet down. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
It must have been okay then.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and
anyway.
of course, this doesn't even touch on the real panacea, which we expect to see, which I expect to see this century,
Right.
which is fusion.
Fusion, right. Again, you don't have to wait. You know, you just do the regular stage 3, stage 4 nuclear,
Right.
and done, you're done. The thing that what I thought that Scott Adams did say, which was absolutely correct, is that if nothing else, this puts the nail in the coffin for the Green people, for the Ocasio-Cortez people.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's far he says this absolutely tears it
She
to
was,
shreds.
of course, out there this week saying now is the time, because oil is crashing and it's free, that we should reject it and embrace the very expensive alternatives.
Well, it is interesting
because the economy is doing great.
Well, Scott Adams does have. Let me just finish up here. So
that'd be perfect.
I encourage everybody to watch this. It's free, and it's on YouTube. And you just look for Michael Moore, whatever it was. It's only been on for less than
24 hours or something.
Yeah, is what it was. And I encourage people to look at it. But it did his complaints. He dissed it because of some of the stuff that the filmmakers did. They, for instance, went to a green concert. Big concert, big cream, and the claim was on 2 or 3 of these places that they went to, they claimed that this is all green funded. We have solar this and solar that, and the filmmakers went around back and found out, well, no, not quite.
That's right. Our generators hooked up.
No, totally. The generators and the lines to the regular power lines.
Of course. Look. Everybody who's looked into this seriously, every scientist knows the difference in the power. It is enormous. It's not as though you can take a little solar cell like this and power a phone or a car or anything. What?
I got a solar cell, I think it's in this watch, that powers this watch for years.
Well, there you go. And of course, watch batteries. You don't want to get too close to them because they're so dangerously
dangerous. Well, of course, just as an aside, that was one of the things when they banned mercury. Because mercury batteries, they're all panic stricken. Give me a break. Anyway, my point is that this is
on Earth Day. He puts the nail in the coffin.
Exactly on Earth Day. The nail in the coffin.
From Michael Moore.
Michael Moore, of all people. This is the consummate liberal.
Well, interesting.
This is the Bernie, unbelievable. So I encourage people.
So have you heard anything from Michael Moore yet?
No.
Has he commented on his own film or reviewed it? I give it an F or what?
No. Interesting. What he did was he talked about it. That's how I found out about it.
Okay.
It was on yesterday's Michael Moore Rumble. He has a thing on his podcast. It's called Rumble. And he talked a little bit about it. And he said, go watch it. So I immediately, did that just to see because as far as I'm concerned, almost anything that he does is very well, like you say, vignettes, slanted, this, that, and the other thing. Although I think he's a great filmmaker. He's
good at those arguments.
He is. Anyway, so I figured this is going to be a big problem there, and it was interesting because the as I say, Scott Adams dissed it almost completely because of the failings, and I was one of these people that said, "Yeah, well, I'm not dissing it. The other stuff is way stronger."
Sounds useful.
No, it really, totally. And so I would. And so anyway, maybe today on Rumble or tomorrow when he's on like every day or two or something like that. I get him on podcasting.
Okay.
And he might. I would imagine that there's a whole ton of people, and he's certainly going to hear from Scott Adams about this.
You got to think his Twitter thing is melting.
Totally. So we'll see. That was one of the highlights of yesterday afternoon for me to get in here. Okay, moving along. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the coronavirus.
Okay.
Missouri, the state of Missouri, sues China for coronavirus pandemic, saying Beijing is responsible for lying to the world and causing enormous death, suffering, and economic losses. I mean, you sued China where and
For
what?
lying.
No, yeah, no. Well, but he apparently Schmidt's
Article 1 of the Ten Commandments. Article
Schmidt's
6 or
office
whatever it is.
accuses China of negligence and claims the pandemic cost Missourians tens of billions of dollars. They're seeking unspecified damages for the deaths and so forth.
They're going to sue in the federal court? Is that where they're
I don't think so. I think it's in local Missouri court. I'm not sure. Municipal court. No, it's got to be the state court.
Right.
It's got to be the state court because it's Missouri. I just think that's interesting. The estimate says coronavirus lockdowns have cost Missouri $44 billion.
That's it?
Unspecified damages, suing China. I'm sitting there. Yeah.
Are they putting value on lives now?
At least.
Yeah.
So
well,
I have to laugh.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I've been expecting the wave of lawsuits to begin at this
Really?
point. Yeah, because from my perspective, it's a rights violating bonanza right now.
Well, you mean about the shutdowns, for
Yes.
instance? I mean the people that have lost business because of they closed I was deemed non-essential.
Exactly.
Where do you get off telling me I'm non-essential?
Exactly. I mean, you're a healthy person. You got nothing going on, and nope, I'm sorry, you have to stay home because I don't know, because we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, because we don't know.
I mean, that's. And I cannot imagine there will not be just in every state. I got to imagine every single state there's going to be class action lawsuits all over. That's why I say there's going to be a blanket forgiveness. The federal government's going to pass a law that says if your state shut you down, you can't sue.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't. Do they have that kind of power?
Well, the feds have that kind of. They have. That's a good question.
I mean, because you can.
Yeah.
They can't tell you can't sue in state court or in municipal court. How about downtown here? Our guy here closed things down. Why can't you sue them?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is I think they can do overriding blanket things like that if they're very specific. It's not. They're not supposed to, but they do. They can and they will. I think because otherwise it's going to be just outrageous. I mean, I mean, we already heard about Michigan, and that's just one. And I mean, I just can't. It's just going to be a cascade unless all the states open up. Like you got Georgia opening up now. Florida, we've got the UFC coming here on May 9th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me just mention. Excuse me. Along those lines, speaking of Florida opening up, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. As far as I'm concerned, everybody ought to open up, and starting tomorrow morning, starting this afternoon, you're all open. And as far as I'm concerned, but
what do you mean if you're all open?
All restrictions against meeting, everything done.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want. Fine. I don't care.
You're an adult.
You're an adult, right? And everything will work out. Now, one of the things that when I think about that, we did have here we talked about this I think on Sunday. They opened up Jacksonville Beach.
Yeah.
For like 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening or something, whatever it was. Anyway, they took pictures, and some of the pictures were wrong because they foreshortened and made it look like there were thousands of people when they were really scattered all over the place. But I did not know this, but one of the things when they opened up the beaches, do you know what two of the restrictions were?
No.
No chairs and no blankets.
Really?
No sitting down, no laying down.
Where do these people
You can walk on the beach, but no sitting and no laying down.
Who thought of that? What doctor?
That was yes, we're opening up the beaches. Go crazy as long as you walk on the beach, or you can take your little doggy on the beach and you go in the water.
Stand in one place.
And you stand in one place. That's exactly right. If you sit down, the cops on their little four-wheelers. That's it. I thought to myself, this is hardly what you call opening the beach.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, look, Dr. Birx came out. First of all, DeSantis got blasted on my Twitter or Facebook feed. All my friends were like, "Oh my God, what an idiot!" And yet you got Dr. Birx coming out who says, "Hey, look, Jacksonville has 200 cases or some tiny small amount. All the cases in Florida or in South Florida, relatively speaking. And so they're fine. They're fine doing that. And of course, look, Jacksonville Beach is huge, and you can go out there and not be near anybody. And
well, not only that, you got to ask yourself, if you do get, you usually pass them.
Right.
I mean, you're walking this way and that way. Wait, I'm getting it from that. Bump them. Elbow them. No. The thing that's funny about this is you can't sit down.
Yeah, that's.
You get tired. If can you imagine? You get
that's
out of the car
so that you leave the beach.
The thing about it, I mean, I'm thinking about myself. I get really tired when I walk on the beach. I don't know if you've ever had.
Sure, it's tired.
And so
it's hard to walk in sand.
It's hard to walk in sand, and the beach is pretty wide. I mean, it's 100 yards or something. So anyway, the point is, can you imagine? You get out of the car, and the first thing you do is you get your cooler and your blanket and your chair, and they say no. The beach is not the beach without a cooler and a chair. It's just not an umbrella.
This week, did you see that woman get arrested in the park?
Yes. Now this, I was talking about this before. This is a woman who apparently it was semi-staged.
Right. And when you read the comments, that's what it looks like.
It looks like it was staged. Now what happened
Which makes sense, because otherwise why didn't they arrest everybody?
Right, exactly. Now what happened was it went viral, of course. This mother of two had taken her kids, and they were on the swings. She was pushing them, and the cops came around, and she goaded them into arresting her.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they did.
Yeah, sure. Like I say all the time, man, if you want to get arrested, they'll comply.
So there were 3 cops there, no gloves, no masks.
Right, I noticed that. Yeah.
They were within this far of each other.
Yeah.
And this far from her.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they were if they were in the period of the COVID 14-day period, they're the carriers, right? So anyway, but there were a lot of other people. A lot of people were filming this, of course, and video, whatever. But they hauled her off, and of course the comments were, they left the kids.
Right, yeah, that's
They left the kids.
Well, look, Child Protective Services will be around to collect those kids soon. And and they will pay that mom a visit and make sure that she's not exposing the kids to harmful park or whatever.
Stunningly amazing. And of course, it was obvious, one of these things that so it was staged.
Right.
So what?
Well, how about this? I mean, what we saw this week was Tom Brady get kicked out of a Tampa park.
Really?
Yeah. He was down there trying to do a workout in the park, and they came by and asked him to leave. Now, he didn't give him any guff, and they didn't arrest him. I imagine that's what happens most of the time. But at the same time, can we please talk about getting back to normalcy? And look, let me just start off by, you see this, I've seen this week everywhere. Of course, you got the people coming out saying, you want to kill grandma if you go outside.
Right.
Here's the thing I want people to understand. The markets are so important. And I got a couple of graphs. I mean, this is one. This is the poverty change over the last 3 decades. This is due to, this is due to the market. Mm-hmm. This is due to capitalism.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you check these numbers here, but we're talking about millions and millions of people have come out of extreme poverty and regular poverty over the last 3 decades due to the markets. But we're not done yet. And in fact, if you Google it today, you will find Google gives you the answer that every single day, 25,000 people starve to death.
Really?
Yes. They starve to death because they don't have access to markets. You're out there somewhere in the bush or something. You're far from wherever, or the system doesn't work.
Now, of course, 25,000 out of 7.5 billion is not that many.
It's not that many, but it's 25,000 people. If you're worried about one life or whatever, think about
if it'll save one life.
Exactly. So here's the thing. If you don't think shutting down the American economy has a ripple effect on third world generations, and I mean a devastating ripple effect. We have people who fly all over the world and do charity work and bring resources and all kinds of stuff, and all that stuff is stopped right now.
Yeah.
And if you don't think people are dying because they're not getting what would have happened, normal treatment or care or a recommendation for this, or
we're culling the herd.
Well, okay, and a lot of people say that, of course, But my point is that you're going to cull it either way.
Yeah.
So if you shut down the market, you're going to get rid of a lot of poor people. And a lot more poor people, most likely, than...
You're not going to get rid of Nancy Pelosi because she's have enough ice cream for an army.
Well, that's what I see. But here's the... Yeah, well, but the rich... Now, but see, the COVID kills, like, the rich old people.
Yeah.
So you got a choice. If you open up the economy, you can kill some of the rich old people. If you keep it shut down, you can kill more of the young poor people. I'm just saying.
I know you're just saying. That's the whole point.
What?
No, you're just saying. Okay, go ahead.
Look, what I'm saying is that it is a balancing act. You can't just be on one side. You can't. If you do, you're not seeing the other side. So you have to look at both consequences. But I'm with you on the standpoint of, I think many more people will be served if the market reopens and people get out there. And so that's what I'm for as well. Now, one thing I want to be clear on, I saw like a tweet this week and it said, Trump insists that everybody returns to work. No, that is entirely different from the situation that we're requesting. What we're saying is allow people to go back to work. Let the people who want to get out there and do it. And then the people who don't want to can stay home. And if you're worried about yourself, you stay home, you stay sequestered, you stay...
Well, a lot of that, as you say, unfortunately, because they've and when you realize it's only been 8 or 10 weeks, this everything has started. Talk about a major disruption, but you think right off the bat the number of people that are going to be fired or out or have lost their business. I mean, the disruption is huge, and it's going to take a while to even that out. That's for sure.
Well, that is in and of itself.
But the market will figure that out.
That's a monetary thing. I'm just saying that money has lethal consequences for not trading hands.
Yeah.
In a big way. And so we'll see. Look, like people have said, the people who are reporting for their normal chemo treatment is way down.
Yeah.
People who would have shown up for reporting of mild heart attacks and stuff is way down. Those people are still having those heart attacks.
Yeah.
They're just thinking, you know what, maybe I'll just ride it out at home instead of going and taking my chances with a little COVID or something.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience.
Exactly.
I mean, when they called me up and said,
and corporate.
Yeah.
Almost did not want you to go back for your other procedure because of the...
That's right. She was panicky that our beautiful new hospital here, or whatever, the wing of it,
was going to spray you with
COVID-19 or whatever. And in fact, they did call and say, wait a minute, not yet. Mm-hmm. And then they called back and said, it's okay. But like you say, corporate said, don't go. And I'm thinking, but you don't understand. they bought, for me, just as an aside here, they bought a $3,500 stent from Australia and had it shipped here. Now what? I'm saying put it in.
Yeah.
And they did.
Well, and you think about that. I mean, fortunately, the supply lines from Australia are still flowing in.
Apparently, this one is.
That's it. But you can imagine that there's a whole bunch of commerce that is not happening right now, and we're not pulling people out of extreme poverty like we were 2 months ago.
I agree, and as I say, knowing what I know about transplants, for instance, I mean, I wonder how many of those have not been harvested, for instance.
Exactly.
I mean, that kind of stuff, because when they harvest, somebody that says I want to donate, there's a whole team of people. There are 2 or 3 teams of people that go down there. I want the liver, I want the lungs, I want the heart.
That's it. Well, you all stand 6 feet
They all
apart.
stand around. Mm-hmm. They have masks on and everything.
Right.
But then they got their little igloo coolers and they put the heart in there and they hoof it. But I'm serious.
Igloo coolers.
No, dude, dead serious. They are igloo coolers. Yes. And they're red, so
right.
This is great. No, seriously, and you wonder how much of this has been stopped.
A large percentage, you have to bet. You have to bet it's taken a dink, and in other words, it just has to be weighed. And I'm on your side, man. I say, and I don't think it matters whose side anybody's on. As I've been saying from literally day one, people are creatures of habit. You can't just turn them off. They're going back to what they were doing in short order. Everybody can rationalize a vacation in their mind. They can think that they're out somewhere, out to lunch for a while. But at some point, those habits kick in and it is overwhelming compulsion to go back to whatever you were doing. So people are going back to work this month. I mean, this is just going to happen.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch that because we have seen here, for instance, the restaurants. 2 things. I got a quote here.
Sure.
every government official with totalitarian instincts now has the moral justification to impose arbitrary and senseless curtailments on the freedom of movement and association.
Right.
Moral justification. They can do that. And of course, they do that down here.
Sure, you just said people are going to die.
But I was thinking, I was just talking with Ms. Jimmy here a few minutes ago. She said, well, we need to go see so-and-so in Idaho. I said, how do you get there? I mean, you can't drive.
Not right now.
No, I mean, where are you going to stay? The hotels, motels are going to be where we're going to eat.
Yeah.
The restaurants are closed. You know, so you stop at the gas station and you go in and get a hot dog and some crackers. And that's what you're going to do. So you can at least get up there with no sleeping.
Are the hotels closed?
Pretty much they are. Yeah. Now I would imagine. Let me put it this way. I would guess that. That a lot of them are. We'll have to Google that and find out. But I'm guessing that a lot of them are closed.
Well, you can bet that the trip would be at least twice as arduous as it normally would be.
No question about it. And what am I going to drive straight through? It's 3 days.
Right, exactly.
3 or 4 days of driving.
Yeah.
God, I tell you, talk about my butt. No, it's just interesting to me to see the way a lot of this stuff just is so senseless. And nobody sees it. I mean, the cop. Oh, that was the other thing. When that lady was arrested, there was at least 10% of the comments that said, "Well, she should have known. She deserved to be arrested. She knew the law. You can't do that. Blah 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 and so forth." Never mind that the cops look like idiots. I don't care who you are. There are times when you're not obligated as a law enforcement person to do the law. I'm sorry, there are just times.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I certainly would have told her to just shut up and whatever. I mean, if you're the cop, you just deal with it. But on the flip side, it's like, I mean, and the 10% people here a little bit, and that is cops are obligated to do a job. And they don't get to decide what's the law and what's not.
Of course, this is as the first thing that comes up, not even 6 degrees of separation. First thing that comes up is the Nuremberg trial.
Right.
Nazi Germany.
That's right.
Because all of those guys said, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah. But there is a difference. There's a gradation.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, you get to use your judgment at some point when you're a cop, and you get held accountable. Those people in Nuremberg got hung. you know?
You wonder how many of them got off, though.
Well, I mean, obviously...
I don't know. I mean, sometimes... Well, I don't know.
Well, I mean, all the colonels just disappeared into the society.
Into Argentina.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
all right. The next thing I've got here... Let me see how we're doing on time. We're in good shape. Senate passed Russell, Congress. Okay. The next thing I've got is, which we can talk about just for a few minutes. Oil was, earlier this week, was crashed below zero.
Yes.
Can you imagine? Now, let me tell you something. I remember when oil was $150 a barrel, and of course that was one of the reasons when Venezuela decided that they were going to be rich because they could sell the. And then of course it crashed down to $30 or $40 or $50, and that's when they went tanked because they couldn't sell, and they'd figured their life in Venezuela was going to be $150. The other day, for a while, when the May contract closed out, it was Friday, is what it was, closed out at minus $10 or something. So you had to pay somebody to take your oil.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting arrangement. And I've been looking at this stuff from my perspective. What we've got here is the market trying to fix a bunch of distortions that have been imposed by large powers, central banks and government actors and such. Obviously,
I don't see that at all.
What do you see?
I see this is the market absolutely working perfectly.
Well, that's what I just said.
Okay, I thought you said going to bring the government in on this subject.
Well, I did. I said the market was fixing what they were breaking.
Oh, okay.
So somehow they broke something. That's my thought is that you don't normally get a swing like this. So it from my perspective, well, and we know what it was. It was the shutdown. They shut down the use of oil for like a month.
Right. Well, I mean, no airplanes, no cruise ships,
cars, everything.
Nobody could go anywhere.
Right.
No, I mean
construction, everything.
Right.
tons and tons of oil stopped being used
Right.
due to a government order.
Right.
And so, and right at the same time, Saudi Arabia and Russia decided to have a fight about
Yep.
their prices, and so they decided to flood the market, and this is what you get now. Like you said, this is the market fixing it.
Market totally fixing it.
But the market is going to fix it with something wild, like a negative $47 freaking
Right.
price, which is like, whoa.
Well, they did say here, I thought it was interesting. I did not know this. What they're worried about, and this is the next contract, which
Right.
is like June or July or
Yeah.
something, and because the same kind of thing could easily occur again. Very few. A lot of people don't want to be stuck with their oil. What happens is, you probably know, a lot of the oil is en route.
Yeah.
In these giant things, and of course, where are they going to put it? Now, it turns out that one of the places they put, I did not know this, but in some place called Cushing, Oklahoma,
Yeah.
apparently is a huge, I mean, you know those big roundy things?
Yeah.
They've got hundreds of
I
them.
got a bunch of those.
I mean, a bunch. And so they said that in a couple of weeks, they're going to be out. No can take no more.
Right.
Well, what do? I mean, you've got this giant ship that holds nothing but oil, and
Drop anchor.
and don't spill any.
That's it.
And of course you got a crew, I guess. Maybe you can lay them off. But certainly there's money to be paid for the ship. These things are what, 200, 300, 400 feet long or something. They hold
At
a
least,
jillion
yeah.
gallons of whatever, and just going to sit there.
Yeah.
While the money, interest, and everything accrues on this. So it's going to take some time to work out. But it is interesting that this is absolutely the market at work. And this is so when people see this, there are people that somehow want the government to step in and
Right.
fix it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, no, it will be just fine. Now, I did notice that, and this is the other thing that happens. $1.47 for a gallon of gas up here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was $2.50 like 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's $1.40. But who wants to go anywhere? I
Right.
mean, literally, I don't think I put 10 miles on my car in the last month.
Right, but that's right now, and as we've talked about, if everything storms back into motion in May, then people will be using tons and tons of oil again. Maybe not to the extent that they just were. Obviously, plane flights are not going to ramp back up immediately. You got closures of borders all over the place.
Yeah, you do.
But even so, I mean, I don't think it's going to be. That was the backstop. That was the crunch right there. I think it'll flow open sooner more as time goes by. But it's an interesting, from my perspective, just one of the distortions that's been created by this, and there's a bunch of them.
Well, the other thing is, I noticed that Trump yesterday or the day before banned all incoming flights except for green card or something. I forget what it was.
Yeah, there was like a general immigration
ban. Yeah. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, think about all the. I mean, there's 1,000 flights a day that come into the United States, and suddenly, what are they down by half or something? What are you talking about?
I don't know. I mean, to me, this seems like Trump doing what the Michigan woman was doing. Like, hey, I'm going to use this crisis to enforce the rule that I want enforced.
Of course, a lot of people are screaming, do anything. Well, here's anything.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Look. I mean, from my perspective, that ban will not last long, because what's going to happen is Trump's going to get a phone call from all the business executives who use immigrant labor, and they're going to be like, "Dude, we need those people like yesterday."
They were talking mostly about the farmers,
right?
Of picking
course
stuff.
It is. Look, and as people have said for now like decades, you try to get an American kid to go out and pick freaking stuff in the field all day long. Go ahead.
Well, of course, what happens is, generally speaking, it doesn't take all that long for the market to respond.
Right.
And you now have automatic pickers for oranges.
Sure.
In other words, it probably wouldn't take too long before there would be some machine out there that would
possibly.
I have no doubt that somebody would figure that out. I mean,
and eventually people will go out there if they don't.
Eventually, that's it also. But it's all about the money. I mean, if you can buy the machine.
But that's what I'm getting at is right now we've got they just printed up $2 trillion and passed it out like freaking
boy, and that's
candy.
the truth.
And so there's money. People are passing around money like almost like it doesn't mean anything. You got Shake Shack giving back their $10 million. Harvard, why are they getting a bailout?
They're not. They already said they're not giving it back.
Right, they're not giving their money back.
And Trump said we're taking it back.
Yeah,
well, of course.
Well, but okay, and then you saw, I'm sure that list that's been going around the internet of all those minor agencies that got billions of dollars.
Oh yeah.
NASA and the National Endowment for the Arts.
I can talk about that here in a minute.
Okay.
The reason being that. What you see is the interference, the genius people in the government who are to say that they're smarter than I am. Of course, I mean I'm not the brightest stick in the whatever it is, but I'll tell you these guys are loons, and they have control. They have guns. They have control over us, and even locally here, our local mayor is pronouncements, and I'm going like, shut up. So,
well, they've been called on to do stuff, and as we've said, I don't mind the fact that we shut down for a month or two to get rid of the unknowns and the fear is perfectly okay. It's voluntary. Look, you tell everybody,
right.
this is what's going on, stay home, and everybody does it. But freedom is the way to go, and you let the people look. There's millions of people out there with freaking 160 IQ, and they're all being kept into their freaking boxes by Whitmer in Michigan or Trump or whoever. Somebody saying no, you can't go out. You don't think those people know what to do? They do. They know how to protect themselves and get their business done and that kind of stuff.
Well, the other thing is, if you sequester in place and with your 2 double wide zero fridges filled with ice cream, so
why are you bringing that up?
No, I just sequester. But okay,
that was a funny.
It was okay.
Thing.
Next item on my list: Trump orders the Navy to shoot down and destroy Iranian gunboats if they harass American ships in the Gulf, and escalation of tensions with Tehran. The warning on Twitter comes as Iran's Revolutionary Guards, interestingly enough, said they've launched their first satellite. They launched a satellite that is up there about 250 miles. Iran, for God's sakes. Now, of course, the panic is, if you can do that, you can send an atomic bomb over to the United States, so we got to do something about that. Well, good luck.
We're already crushing them on every front. They don't have access to our banking system, so they can't trade in the petrodollar system. Their economy has taken a huge dump in the last decade. I mean, they're in real bad shape.
Well, they are, but it's interesting. They still have the wherewithal to stick up a satellite. Yeah, which is kind of interesting. But the other thing is that
they're resilient.
Well, yeah, you do what you have to. I'm interested. I saw some pictures of the little boatettes, I call them, that were harassing the ships in the Gulf of wherever it was.
They couldn't take a 50 cal shot?
Are you kidding? Give me a break. Look, I forget they looked like they were PT boat sized.
Right.
And, they're like little bugs swarming around.
Yeah.
And they might hit us or something. So Trump is saying, blast them out of the water? No, for God's sakes. What you do is you fill them up with bean bags or something. No, I mean, you don't kill them. It's just
you get them with the water gun.
Said something like that. I would you buckshot anything. Just the
ice was it salt?
Salt, yeah, that's right. I think that this is one of those things like when they killed the. Now I realize it's slightly different, but when they killed the Duke, for instance, Archduke.
Yeah.
Who knew? Who knew? He was a nobody, nothing from nothing, and the next thing you know, you got the First World War.
Well, yeah.
It's not quite the same thing. No. But you don't know what's going to happen. You start blasting these people out of the water. I don't. You got to have an end game here.
Well, from my perspective on that, it depends on I guess how aggressive they are. But I'm with you. I mean, if they're not firing on you, I mean, why would you fire on them if they're in? Well, exactly. They're no threat to our ship. So you just go about your business. Basically.
Well, the only thing they're worried about probably is something like what happened to the coal.
Right.
And that is.
Well, that's why I say what's the threat level?
Right.
If they come up next to the ship, man, hell yeah, light them up.
That's right.
But,
light them up.
Otherwise, I mean, if they're just crossing your bow or something, I mean.
Well, the pictures that I saw was they're out there running around like bugs in the water, and like water bugs,
Right.
And you can see the trails.
Right.
They were all over the place. It was kind of a hoot in a way, but yeah, I mean, It's you know, you can only go so far, I guess, and then I don't know. So we'll see what happens. I don't
expect anything to come of that.
No, I don't either. But I just thought I'd bring it up because I thought that was a little. Of course, Trump is a bit of a trumpeter when it comes to this stuff. The Senate, I thought this was interesting. The Senate, in bipartisan, backs an assessment that Russia interfered in the 2016 election.
So?
They've issued a report. Wait a minute. Bipartisan Senate report released Tuesday affirms that the U.S. intelligence community's conclusions that Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election in a far-ranging influence campaign.
Far-ranging?
Far-ranging influence campaign approved by Putin and aimed at helping Donald Trump to win the White House. Now, I'm sitting there thinking, what did they do? I mean, they put some ads on Facebook.
I question the words far-ranging.
Well, this is what I'm saying is, here it is 3 years after this, and a bipartisan panel. What are they talking about? The heavily redacted report,
right?
Which is kind of interesting. That means you probably got to see about a tenth of it. Redacted from the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is an oxymoron, is part of the panel's more than 3-year investigation into the Russian interference. And so they concluded in January that the Russians engaged in cyber espionage and distributed messages through Russian-controlled propaganda outlets to undermine public faith in the democratic process.
Whenever I hear that kind of stuff, like Russia supports Trump, I think to myself, well, so what? Because, like, for example, let's say that the neo-Nazis came out with a glowing endorsement of Joe Biden. Well, do you now hate Joe Biden because people you hate like him?
Yeah.
No,
They did this with when David Duke endorsed somebody,
right?
And
exactly.
right away they said, "Oh well, now no wonder."
So the Senate concludes that the Russians were trying to help. Okay, so that's an advertisement that the Russians want Trump to win. So isn't that an anti-Trump advertisement? I mean, what I'm saying, you can't tell. It's too subtle. The negatives are as good as the positives. I mean, what?
Well, the Senate report calls the agency's assessment, quote, an impressive accomplishment, and endorses its core conclusions that Russia had interfered on a grand scale in the election that Putin directed from the Kremlin. I'm sitting there thinking, what are you people thinking? I mean, he didn't have anything better to do? I mean, give me a break.
Well, here's the follow-up to that is, and since he got his candidate elected, what has he done with his candidate?
Well, not only that, how did he do it? When you think about it, remember now, the popular vote was 3 million people more for Hillary.
Right, that's right.
So apparently he didn't do that great a job in convincing...
Yeah, well, his Facebook ads must have targeted the Electoral College.
Yeah, right. This is like we target the Duma or whatever their people are over there.
That's right. Well, look, look, as soon as we get some intelligence that Trump has transferred our gold reserves over to Russia, or that he's offered them Alaska for pennies on the dollar, or
wait a minute. Wait, no. We bought Alaska for what, $6 million?
I don't know.
No, that was Louisiana.
Louisiana Purchase.
Louisiana Purchase was $6 million, I think.
I don't remember now.
But Alaska was also some money.
It was cheap, though.
It was cheap. Oh no, it was a nickel an acre or something or less. I mean, and then we found gold. Fools.
So my point is that until anybody can point to a thing that Trump did that specifically helps Putin, I don't understand. I mean, the argument that he's Putin's puppet is sort of like, is Putin waiting for something? I mean, is
been waiting a while.
That's what I'm saying. You better hurry it up there. You might lose an election in a couple months.
We're coming up on 3.5 years, and where's the reward?
Exactly. And so, to me, that is the most telling evidence that Putin is not in control of Trump, because otherwise it would be kind of obvious, I think.
Look.
Or at least there'd be some indication.
Well, it's funny because even though we have all the power that we do with the dollars and everything like that, we can't. You sit there and try and tell other countries what to do, and they go, poo, forget it. I mean, when we're
well, right, I know, but the theory was, Putin had the P tape on him or something, or there was some kind of he's funding his businesses through hotels over there or whatever it is. But I mean, to me, Trump is an independent actor. One of the qualities I think makes him attractive as a candidate is the fact that he's rich, and that you can kind of imagine that nobody can pay him off. I mean, when you've got billions of dollars and you've had billions of dollars your whole life, you got to be pretty saturated with stuff.
Well, not only that, he's already collected like 60 or 100 million dollars or something in donations for for this coming campaign.
Right.
And apparently, he dwarfs Biden's campaign. And
Shocking.
Of course, I forget, somebody else was saying that Biden's done. And
well, that's because of that weird ad. That
yes,
maybe an ad or maybe not an ad.
Yeah, well, I have not seen that. We can talk about it later, unless you want to talk.
Well, sometimes we just mention. I mean, I don't think it's real. It says Biden something like not his brain, his heart, or something.
People that I know said that it's a troll.
Right, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, it was. It's professionally done by a professional.
Right,
troll.
It's like that other thing that went out this week, which was the notice for people to come and assemble at the protest, and it said, "Don't bring your masks, but bring your kids." And it's hanging on a tree. Somebody took a picture of what looks like somebody printed out on their printer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, it's a troll.
Yeah.
Of course it is. So you get that on both sides.
Okay, let me just see here what we're getting here towards the end. Just to go back for a few minutes on the COVID-19.
Okay.
There are two people here that are involved. This scare the crap out of us. The CDC chief warns the second COVID wave may be worse, arriving with the flu season. That's like in January or December, whatever it is. Yeah.
This is the money room. I was supposed to have this shot up when we were talking about the economy.
Yeah.
So.
There's a possibility that the assault of the virus on our nation next winter will actually be even more difficult than the one we just went through, said the director, Robert Redfield. He told the Washington Post in an interview, as the current outbreak continues to taper off, as shown by a recent decline in hospitalization, we need to prepare for a probable resurgence in the months ahead. So they're already, you think you're locked down, so no. We're coming. This is the head of the CDC, our local guy. Now, the head of the WHO warns that the worst of the coronavirus is ahead of us. Director General, World Health Organization, strange name, Ghebreyesus, whatever, said Monday that the worst is yet ahead of us concerning the global impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Trust us, he says. The worst is ahead of us.
Sure. Why wouldn't we trust you?
I just sit there to quote, trust us. What? To trust these clowns?
Yeah, exactly. And the first thing out of that is you got to know the media is going to put out a thing that says we're all going to die in the fall, because if it bleeds, it leads. That's what they got to do. So there's that, and then you've got the parallel from the 1919 flu, where it came back at the But the reason it came back with a vengeance is because it mutated. It mutated into something 10 times more deadly than it had previously been.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there was a big change in the thing. And so, and that's what, I mean, in this one, they pointed out, is mutating at about a rate of once a month.
Really?
Yeah. The question is, does it mutate into something more deadly, or as normally does, less deadly?
Yeah.
And usually it just goes away at some point. But it could turn out 10 times more deadly, or 100 times more deadly. It could
when you think about it, interestingly enough, when even in animals and any kind of thing, when they mutate, so to speak, like I said, they die right away. An animal born without a head or no legs or something, I'm sorry, they're gone. That's a mutation. Exactly. They're dead.
Right. Most of the time, as you would expect, a random mutation produces an anomaly which does not aid the creature.
Right.
Only occasionally is it something that makes the creature better.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's not mutating on purpose.
No.
So so we'll see what if there's a mutation like that. I mean, there's obviously, we got people tracking it now. And you got to remember, in 1919, we didn't even have penicillin. So
no,
we're talking about
in 1919. Not only that, they didn't know what blood types were. until the 30s.
See, and now we're sequencing the genome of this thing every
aspirin.
month.
in the 1920, they didn't even have aspirin.
Okay, so you see the difference there, and also
Had cocaine.
And they didn't even have cocaine. And then, of course, the other thing is that when they all went back, they took no precautions at all.
Right.
And I'll bet you that when people go back here, there's going to be a lot of wiping down of stuff and masks and gloves and stuff like that for a while anyway.
Yeah, for a while,
and,
sure.
And if there's and also we have mass communication now on a level that is relative to 1919.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if there's a hot spot somewhere, people will be all over it. There'll be freaking apps for that. I mean, it'll be so the concept that we're going to suffer a second more deadly wave, I think, is fallacious. I think that.
Ooh, scare tactics.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, by the media you can expect it. You can also expect it from the doctors. Doctors have to tell you, watch out. They can't tell you, no, you're good. Because if
Actually, my doctor did tell me.
well, and he caught flack from corporate for that too.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I went to the doctor and he said, you know,
you're looking pretty good.
You're looking pretty good, for God's sake.
That's right. That's
I
right.
came back and talked to Miss Jimmy and she said, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Exactly. Sue, I'm going to sue. And of course, if something happened to you, he'd be top on her list to take.
Yeah,
so the doctors are going to tell you that stuff's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And the press, is going to tell you stuff's going to be bad. So you got to search around for the news, check with the science, cross-reference the science and all the information, and then make your own conclusions. So.
Okay, we're getting here towards the end, so I really only I got a couple more things, but I'm going to talk about this one. Another consequence of the shutdown business is, as Latinos lose jobs, remittances to their relatives in Latin America dry up. A lot of people don't realize that of all the farm workers and those people that are making whatever they're making a day or so, tons of their money, they on Fridays, they walk into the 7-Eleven or what, and a lot of those places have got an automatic link on Western Union or whatever, the cash thing, and they transfer money to their people back
It's
home.
something like 40%.
Well, I was looking here. Hermanino Rodriguez could not send money to his family in Guatemala after the Miami Beach restaurant where he's working closed. And of course, he worries about his parents and son who depend on the monthly maintenance to buy food and medicine.
See, that's what I'm talking about in terms of secondary casualties.
Right, exactly. I couldn't even pay rent, he says, this month. I need a little bit to keep reserves so we can eat. I mean, that, it's food versus everything else.
Exactly.
And so that it says here in many countries, remittances account for a significant portion of their gross domestic product. In Nicaragua and Guatemala, they account for around 12%, and El Salvador and Honduras, 20%. 20% of the GDP. Can you imagine? That is phenomenal.
It is. And we're talking about the poorest people, too.
Right, exactly. The poorest of the poor. And I mean, this is when the fellow working up here has to forego rent in order to have food, and then suddenly nothing goes back home. Whew, that's tough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the third world is going to be most impacted by this. And of course, we still haven't seen the explosions, what we anticipate. If given the numbers that we have, we should see big rises in cases in places like India and Mexico.
Africa's another one. That's in other words, and one of the things, as you've seen, it's interesting. You mentioned, in the 1920s, we had newspapers, but today in places like Africa, you got nothing. I mean, you don't have any. I mean, you might have a little bit of internet in the big cities, but other than that, out in the countryside, you got nothing.
Well, they got more than they used to.
No, they do. There's no question. They do have more than they used to. But still...
That's what I'm talking about. The market, the expansion of that kind of stuff is reaching out to those people constantly and dragging those people from extreme poverty up into civilization.
True, yeah.
And that kind of stuff has, I'm sure, entirely stopped or largely stopped. And there's going to be a lot of suffering from those peoples because of the economy. But like I said, it's not going to matter because Americans are going back to work. ASAP, and that's just the way it's going to be. People are going to live with it, and hopefully we'll find out that the thing is way more widespread and way less deadly, and people can deal with it.
I did see, just as a closing here, I did see an article. Now I didn't go Google it or try and convert, but they said that the coronavirus in Sweden was 20 times what it was in Finland and Norway.
So I checked the numbers from Sweden, Finland, and Norway last night.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, and they basically have the same rate of infection, allegedly, but Sweden's deaths are way higher. But that can be a factor of testing. And the fact is that Sweden isn't testing the people like random people. They're only testing people who come in.
Okay.
So it's only if you're ill. So you would expect there to be a much higher percentage of those people dying than the other people. And the other thing people have to remember about the Sweden model is that they decided to take it on the chin up front.
Yeah.
Rip the Band-Aid off, get everybody exposed, get the herd immunity, and move on. Get back to stuff. So you would expect to see a much higher percentage.
Right.
In Sweden.
Well, they always showed you the curve, it's like this versus the flattening of the curve.
That's right. Now, and of course, it's been pointed out a million times by a million people that the areas under the curve are the same. So you're the same number of people are going to get it. It's just a question of when. And the concept was we wanted to make sure that we got enough supplies and stuff. So
take the band off really slowly.
That's right. But Sweden was like, forget it. We'll take the pill and be done. So if it turns out that Sweden does not suffer a second wave at all, and they can roar back and get in their Volvos and drive to IKEA, then they'll be in good shape. And meanwhile, you got someone like Singapore, who their effort was shut down entirely under penalty of serious penalties out there. Singapore, as you know, they cane you for dropping your gum on the ground.
Right.
So they shut everybody in, except they didn't have control over some barracks, basically, that were providing workers, low-income workers, and they're all on top of each other, and they got it. Mass outbreak there, and now Singapore is suffering a second wave.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, and so we'll see how that turns out. But I'm still a fan of the Swedish model at this point.
Well, interesting about the Sweden, I haven't checked the actual population figures, but I will tell you from having lived in Sweden for a while, and of course it's been quite a number of years, the population of Sweden is like 10, 11 million.
Yeah.
Which has hardly changed at all in 40 years. It was 7.5 million when I was there. But in Norway's all spread out, and so is Finland.
Yeah, well, that was the thing people said. Apparently, there are a whole...
And they speak Finnish in Sweden.
Weird.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of more people who have single-person households in Sweden.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, relative to other places.
I did not know that.
So, yeah, that's one thing I read. I don't know how accurate it is, but apparently more independent people in that country than in even some of the surrounding Scandinavian countries. So you would expect less of a transmission rate with that type of general culture. But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see, I guess, huh?
Okay.
All right. Well, let's see. Oh, look at that coming up on the end here. Let's see if we got any messages. Oh, hey, Kenny, Scott. Good to see you guys. Let's see. Kenny says, Bugs Bunny, Marvin, Mars, Ion, Uranium, 235. Exactly. Exactly. He was going to... Where's the kaboom? So, and then Scott says, why can't families of people who died sue the government due to ignoring the warnings and failing to protect?
Good luck.
Sue the government due to who's ignoring the warnings? Due to their own? You must mean due to the government.
Yeah, because there are a lot of people that say that Trump did not close down the country fast enough.
Right, and to me, my thought is that they're just not responsible for you. I mean, you, as much as you would like them to be, you got to be responsible for yourself, and there's no way to hold the government accountable for that.
They're going to get out of it anyway.
Yeah. So
I want to give another shout out to Elliot.
Hey, Elliot.
No, he listened. He thanked me for shouting out to him before, but
oh yeah, so you can do it every show now.
Yeah, now he gets it every. That's right.
All right. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it. These tracks brought to you by Kevin MacLeod. I guess we're going out to Funky Chunk this time because I hit the wrong one accidentally. So
we're going to be back on Sunday.
That's right, 4 o'clock.
And don't forget today's Earth Day. Kiss your planet.
That's right. Go out there and I guess
recycle something.
A couple days ago or something. St. Pot Day was a couple days ago.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So anyway, I'm Council Curtis. This has been the show of Jimmy Doan. See you soon.